Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Wizard101 in 2022. Now I know what you may be thinking, you're like, Noah, you're like very late to this party. Wizard101 in 2022, that's usually like a video you upload right at the beginning of the year. Well, I was going to, and then I completely forgot. And then I realized January 23rd, I was like, oh my god, I never did that. So let's do it. So what exactly does this video entail, in case you're curious? Basically, I want to go over what I hope to see in Wizard101 in 2022, and also what I expect to see in Wizard101 in 2022, because they're two very different things. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, starting off, let's talk about my expectations. And how I'm going to divide this is, as you may know, there's usually a spring update, a summer update, and a fall update. And I'm going to go over what I think is going to probably likely be in each of those. So mark this down. These are my predictions. Let's see how well I do, you know, by the end of next year. Who knows? Maybe I'll have gotten 100% right. So what I expect to see from this year in Wizard101. For the spring update, likely we're not going to get anything like super major. I imagine we could potentially see some more audits. So maybe not the gear audit per se, because they did say that that's going to take quite a long time, but I could potentially see some kind of potentially further spell audit compared to what they've currently done, maybe some changes to some spell animations, and largely minor stuff like that. Another thing I expect we could see, and this for me is either going to be in the spring update or the summer update, don't know really which one yet, is also a graphical update. Now, if you don't know, they've done this a few times in the past with Wizard City. They completely remodeled and retextured Wizard City, and then they also did this with player models at one point. I think that was like 2 years ago now. I expect that we're probably going to get another one of those this year, because they have mentioned that they want to do it for the Arc 1 worlds. They've said that before. So I imagine, I mean, I'm not 100%, but I imagine that we're going to get an update on probably Krokotopia this year. Krokotopia definitely is in much need of it, and I've said this in the past. The one thing I think that's holding Krokotopia back for me right now is that it looks just really ugly, and I really hope that they update it. So I do expect that we're going to see a graphical change in that regard. Another one, and I know I already kind of mentioned this, but the gear audit. I think potentially we are going to see the gear audit this year. If we do see it, it's probably going to be the summer update. And if you don't know what I mean by the gear audit, basically KingsIsle has confirmed that they are planning on reworking all of the gear, especially early game gear, to better fit with balance and progression and kind of update it in that regard. And I think this is actually a really good idea. I've said this before. I think a gear audit is very much needed, especially in those earlier levels where there's like one major gear set every 30 levels, and those are the best and really only options. So I would like to see some new gear sets, and I do think we're going to get that gear audit probably in the summer. Definitely I wouldn't say we're getting it in the spring, but definitely I expect to see it this year. If not, definitely by early 2023 I could definitely see it, and that is something that excites me. Next thing I'm expecting has to do with social updates. I'm expecting they're going to continue along the line that they've been doing with social changes, potentially some new social systems, definitely something new and interesting, and potentially even guilds. They've hinted at guilds a lot. They've said, yes, that is something that they're potentially looking into. They mentioned that in the December dev diary. I can see that in spring or potentially summer as well. Honestly, spring is looking more likely. The final thing that I would like to predict is I know for a fact that in the fall update, they're going to release something major, whether it be a new major dungeon, a new major world, something along those lines, because that's what the fall update is. Wizard101 has upheld this policy for the last like 7-8 years now, and I don't expect them to change it now. So my prediction is probably, and I'm gonna say this with a little bit of tentativeness, I potentially see us getting a new major dungeon or major game area rather than a new world this year. And obviously take this with a grain of salt, but the main reason why I'm saying this is the fact that the last 2 years we've had worlds and no real major gear upgrade, and they have confirmed it is about time for a new gear upgrade. 160 is going to be the new Dragoon gear type style thing where we're getting a massive upgrade on our gear. And so I imagine we're going to see a dungeon that gives some good gear released this year at some point. Now that that's out of the way, my predictions, and do try to keep track of those, I'm going to, and see how many I get right by the end of the year. Let's go into the things I hope I see this year, because obviously I have my expectations, but I have a lot of wants that I would love KingsIsle to actually explore this year. So first off is something I've mentioned quite a few times, and definitely in my most recent videos you would know, is the spellment system. This year, I would absolutely love to see the spellment system remodeled, redone, and reworked into something usable and intuitive for newer players as well. I would absolutely love to see this, and once they do, I could potentially see myself creating another wizard and journeying through the game again with spellments, because I think that that's really exciting and something really cool that I'd like to see. So I definitely hope to see spellments reworked this year. How I expect them to do that? Likely they're going to make it so that certain bosses drop it, many more bosses drop it with a much higher chance of dropping it, because as of right now, the only bosses that really drop it are key bosses. I could potentially see them moving it to some major dungeon bosses or major boss fights that would potentially see much more traffic. Someone commented an idea saying like the Wisteria spellements should be dropped from like the Tower of the Hierophant, and Celestian spellements should be dropped from somewhere in Celestia. I agree with that. I think that that would ultimately be the best way to go about it and the most interesting in my opinion. So I would like to see that. Another thing I would like to see, and this is less a Wizard101 update and more a policy update, I would love to see a push for advertising. And I know that it's kind of been reckoned that they're not going to push for advertising for a while, and they haven't pushed for advertising in a very, very long time. I would very much like to see them actually attempt to really push it. Like, make a commercial like they did in the old days, and make a legitimate effort to try to get new players in the game, especially some new, like, a new wave of maybe kids or teenagers. I think that that is almost definitely what the game needs right now, whether it be from actually more money being made by KingsIsle so they can focus more on hiring people and expanding the company, or simply just the fact I think some fresh faces would really, really do this game a lot of good. I would love to see this in the form of commercials, advertisements online. Someone in my Discord server posted the fact they saw a Wizard101 ad on Kiss Anime, which is an anime watching website. I think that's hilarious, but that's not what I mean. I want some more popular websites to have advertising, and a lot of it. I think that would really do this game justice and really expand it well. Another few things I'd like to see, and these kind of go hand in hand, is changes to spells. First off, if they change spells, I want them to take into account that PvE and PvP are very different games and game modes, and I really want this to finally be taken into account, because they tend to just make it so that they balance a spell around one or the other when I don't see why they need to do that. We already have things like Bad Juju, which have different effects inside and outside of PvP. Why not just do that for every spell that they want to change? I think that that would really work instead of either shooting the PvP players in the foot or shooting the PvE players in the foot. You don't need to do one or the other. You can just definitely balance it around both. And that's definitely bothered me for a long time, because they definitely have had a more focus in recent years on PvP players in regards to spells. They keep adjusting PvE spells around PvP players when they really don't need to do that. I would just like to see it so if they change more spells in the future, they make it so it's much more balanced of a change than what we're currently seeing, and definitely just more balanced overall. That's something I would really, really like to see. Another thing in regards to spells is animation. And I know some people have said in my comments, I don't want to see an animation change on certain spells. I think that people severely underestimate how much animation time can really help in this game. Back when I first played this game, people don't realize, like, mob battles took multiple minutes to do, and some people I know prefer that, but like the slower game style really doesn't work, especially in Wizard101 where the combat is extremely similar and like samey. Like, it's not like every combat is a unique experience. Realistically, most of it is very similar, and you don't want to watch Meteor Strike's animation be 3 hours long, you know, for the 100th time. So I would like to see more spells be adjusted to be slightly shorter of an animation, and ultimately, this leads into the next point. I think it would be really cool if we had a Pirate 101 style fast combat system. Basically, if you don't know how it works, is you have an option in the menus to turn on fast combat, and what it does is it speeds up the combat animations by like maybe 2 times or 1.5 times, something like that. Really, it's just a cool feature. And how it works, in case you're curious, if you're in a battle with someone else who doesn't have fast combat enabled, it just turns it off. I think that would be really cool in Wizard 101 and would work really, really well. You can enable fast combat, and then obviously it doesn't mess it up if you have fast combat on and someone else doesn't. Just make a system similar to that. And then to adjust for that, maybe make team up have a fast combat only section checked so that you could actually team up with people who have fast combat on, just to make the game feel a bit faster for people who don't like grinding as much. I think this would be really cool and would be balanced and not too annoying for most people. I think that that would ultimately be really, really cool. So ultimately, the final thing I would just like to talk about, and this kind of wraps it up, is just really quality of life. I think what they've been doing in the last 2 years with quality of life has really, really helped Wizard 101 compared to what it was. Back in even 2015, this game didn't have nearly as much quality of life as it currently has, and I'm really, really hoping that they continue on the track that they're going and make the game even higher quality of life and really just make the game more beneficial for us players. But that's really it. That's all I wanted to go over today was 2022, what I'm expecting from it, what I hope from it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Like, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you want to see in 2022? I know a lot of people, are just saying the devs listening to us, and I didn't mention that directly because basically what I'm saying is I want the devs to listen to us. I really hope that they do. I hope that in 2022 we see these changes that we want be made more and more, because I think that that's really what this game needs right now, is the devs listening to us as a player base and making changes based on that rather than just kind of ignoring what we want. But that's it for today. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video. Adios.